guest today is Andy Varble. I've known him for a real long time. He's been, an industry pillar in a lot of big companies, and even I think started around Wells Fargo, if I'm not mistaken.
Even before that, actually.
Even before that. So, Andy, take us through a little bit of history about yourself.
All right. Well, as John said, I've been in the industry about 25 years plus. I actually started back in the early 90s for a company that did ACH. So we were one of the first companies that could actually do ACH for the e-com when the dot-com boom was growing. And then from there, as John mentioned, I've worked for a lot of the big processors, your First Data's of the world, WorldPays, Wells Fargo's of the world. And in the last 18 years, I've been in the ISO world. So about 25 years total.
Okay. And so the first company you started at was which company, and how did you get into it?
It was called Automated Transaction Services. And as I mentioned, back when everybody was starting, they had the templated websites and you really weren't moving money over the internet. It was all just purely, hey, here's my cheap templated website. So we went out there and showed them how they could e-commerce enable their website. So I started working with a lot of ISOs, humble way back when. And they would be working on the merchant service side. We would be doing the ACH side. So I was leading the business development crew for my company. And we started working with a lot of different companies. And we would do the ACH piece. They would do the credit card processing piece. And from there, I jumped into First Data. And I was the regional sales manager when they first won the relationship with Citibank. So I was in Los Angeles market at that time. So I had about 110, 120 branches I was responsible for. And from there, boy, it's just gone and grown from there.
Andy, I'm curious, how many merchant accounts have you been a part of bringing on board?
Oh, wow. 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, I would guess. A lot.
Yeah, I think when we get past the 3,000 mark, we start to forget,
Yeah. Hey, when I started in this industry, I had hair. That's how long it's been.
I mean, I think I had over 5,000 merchants total at TMS alone, and probably lost about 4,200 since 2012.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are fun times. That's actually how I met you, Andy. If you remember, you came down and you came down to train us on Groove, the big failure of.
Yep, I did. Worked with you on that and selling skill sets and things like that, overcoming objections. I remember that. Spent a day with your crew.
Yeah, that's when we had the office in San Diego.
Yeah, exactly.
We can move on from Groove. I think we all have a little bit of sour feelings over Groove.
Yeah. Talk about bigger, better things. Yeah.
So Andy, what do you think, what has been, happened in your life or in your professional life that's helped you, move from the ACH space into the credit card processing, working with the acquirers and then into the ISO channel? How did that transition happen?
This industry, and I joke about it, especially those of us who have been in the industry for a while. I tease about it becoming a virus. You get in this industry and you cut your teeth and the thrill of victory of making a sale, right? And then you make 2 sales and you make 20 sales and you make 200 sales. And then that excitement gets in your blood and you just keep going and you keep growing. Some of the most exciting things I've done is, I've had a lot of opportunity. I've grown teams organically. I've been handed broken teams, and I've had to break them down and rebuild them. And some of the greatest joys I've had over the years is to help people find themselves and really find their inner self, their self skills, and coach them into a president's club for some of the corporate size things. And I've seen people go from renting apartments to buying their first house, or buying a nicer car and having that big smile on their face as they drive down the street in a Lexus. So I find tremendous joy in helping people really reach their potential, selling with integrity. That's one of my biggest things, is selling with integrity.
Now, what's your position consisting of now where you're at?
So I'm with Choice Merchant Solutions. We're headquartered out of Connecticut. And I tell you, out of the 25 years or so I've been in the industry, this is one of the most exciting jobs I've had in those 25 years. They're boutique in size, but when I was interviewing with John Paul, the owner, one of the things that we really hit it off on, he's a great visionary. So as much as he's a sales guy, he's a big in technology guy. So we have some amazing technology. Our back office for the agents is phenomenal.
And that's the Jarvis CRM?
Yes, Jarvis. Yeah, so you can tell he's an Iron Man fan.
Yeah.
So he's got some amazing technology. We have our own gateway where we've had, but we've done some phenomenal things to it. We're about ready to launch that. In fact, we'll be showing that off at the NEAA show next week. We have a smart terminal and a smart POS we're going to be launching. We'll have the smart terminals available to show off next week at NEAA. But one of the things I liked most about Choice, and the reason why I worked with them and have been thrilled to death since I've been there, is they have integrity.
JP's a pretty straightforward guy, right?
Straightforward guy, and I tell you,
he's a no bullshit kind of guy.
Absolutely, and that was kind of our first conversation. He goes, Andy, tell me about you, your selling style, what's important to you. And I kept pushing, hey, integrity. If you say you're going to do something, do it. And that was his exact mentality. And I tell you, we became best buds from that point forward. And we've had a lot of fun since I've been here. And what's great about Choice is when you come on as an agent, you have a dedicated relationship manager handed to you right away. So you don't call into a black hole and get 1 to 20 or 30 people. You might get 5 different answers from 5 different people. You have a dedicated relationship manager. And as an agent, if you have a question, you could reach right out and you'll have access to our head of customer service.
So for
So
you'd say for like a bigger ISO, you guys have more like that small family feel, or?
Absolutely.
I could just yell at you when my accounts, there's problems.
You can call me directly. You'll have my cell phone number. Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully you won't yell at me. Hopefully they'll say, Andy, your staff's giving me great service.
Yeah.
But it's been great. It's been fun. Some of the best years I've had in the industry. What was that, John?
I said, you know me, I'm impossible to please.
Absolutely, yeah, but we try.
Andy, I really want to know, this question is really important to me. Tell us about the unicorn merchant that just got away from you. That one merchant where you're like, I've worked hard to get it. I'm so excited. It's a big merchant or it's a small merchant, but I worked so hard to get this merchant and it got away.
You know, something I'm working on, about a $50 million unicorn right now, and we are about 98% there.
No, you just jinxed yourself. You better knock on some wood.
And I can't name it right now, but I will be crying in a napkin next week if it falls apart. But everything is actually moving along really well.
Is that $50 million a month or $50 million a year?
Annually.
Oh, okay. So
annually. You know, in sales, you bang on a lot of doors. You have a lot of leads that you're massaging along the way. Some close real quick. You know, 1-2 call closes. Some it takes 3, 4, 5 months, especially when you're getting up into the 1 million, 5 million, 20 million annual income. You know, and I've lost some big insurance companies. Let's say I remember working on one that was doing about 20 million, and it was between us and their current provider. And we brought in all sorts of great technology, phenomenal service. And in the end, they stayed with they're in their comfortable place. So those are the ones that can become painful after you've done all the legwork and proven to them, hey, we're going to give you phenomenal pricing. We're going to give you phenomenal support. And then they say, I have all this paperwork. Instead of bringing all this new technology, I'll just stay in my comfort zone.
So Andy, you've kind of described your career in merchant services, helping sales teams grow, helping individuals grow, helping yourself grow, and helping build these companies. Me and John were actually talking earlier. It seems like there's a rush of people kind of wanting to get into this business, and there's some seasoned reps that are transitioning out into other things, cashing in residuals, opening their own businesses, chasing other dreams. And there's a bunch of fresh individuals coming in. Now, the industry is not the same today as it was when I got in. It's not the same when John got in. It's definitely not the same from when you got in. But at the same time, you see the landscape and you see how the new reps are adjusting. What advice do you have, or skill sets that you would say to work on for the new reps coming into the business, you know, in 2020?
It's a great question. This is a great industry to be in. You know, I call it the gift that keeps on giving. If you're out there and you work hard and you work smart, and once again, I'm going to go back to that, sell with integrity and be loyal to your merchants, you can build a beautiful life for yourself and a beautiful future. You don't have to answer to corporate America. But my advice is you have to work hard. You know, the first year in this industry is very, very, very difficult. You gentlemen, I'm sure, have seen hundreds come and hundreds go, but because they couldn't weather the storm. The first 90 days especially are very, very difficult. And, you know, in the way I've trained my agents and employees through all the years, I really help them work towards numbers. So I'll tell them, you count how many cards you're going to hand out each morning, and keep track of the cards, keep track of the conversations, keep track of the presentations, keep track of the closes, and then you know your numbers. And then if a merchant or if an agent says, hey, I want to make 75,000 this year, or I want to make 100,000 this year, we can take that data that I've helped them create and work backwards and say, okay, based on that, you have to knock on 125 doors a week. You have to talk to at least 10 people, and you got to close at least 3 or 4 of them. So that's my advice is you're not just going to fall into a gold pot of money. It's very, very hard for your first 90 days, hard for your first year. But man, if you can get through that, you'll never look back. It'll be the best career you've ever had. But you'll sweat to get there.
I can agree with that 100%. John?
Andy, tell us about the company that you worked for that didn't work out.
No, we don't want to do that.
No, I'm just saying a company that you work for that you got there and you go, oh, I need to get to it with a better company.
Yeah, what are some tall tale signs that you're not in a good place?
Yeah, so I walked into a company and leadership would run through the office and yell and scream at people. The residuals would never line up right with the agents. They wouldn't take phone calls from the agents. Abusive towards the employees, you know, and it's just right. It was just writing on the wall. It's, you know, so within 2 to 3 weeks that I got in there, I said, this doesn't match my personality, my style, my integrity, and the way I like to work. And so, you know, it was a short run. And that's another thing you realize in this industry. There's a lot of sharks. There's a lot of snakes. In the last 25 years in this industry, that's a bit of a unicorn, right? Because you guys have seen a lot of people wash themselves out because they start talking trash. They don't live up to their promises. They underdeliver, overpromise. They get washed out. People are going to catch up to them, whether it be ownership or their merchants, and they'll figure them out. Say, I'm not doing business with you. I'm leaving. They lose their portfolio due to that dishonesty. So, you know, I've always been a man of integrity, and I might give you an answer you don't want to hear, but it'll be the truth. And I've done that. I've told people, you know, I can't do that. I can't price it like that because I got to keep the lights on. My company's got to keep the lights on. But here's what we're going to do for you. And I turn it into a value statement. And I've still actually won quite a few deals over the years by being honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's, you know, that is the unicorn of the industry. Not a lot of people are.
Yeah.
Is choice your forever home? Do you have other goals or ambitions that you're looking for the future?
You know, something I am thrilled to death. What was that, John?
He's going to come work for me on the dark side. I'm pulling from the force.
One of these days, John, you and I are definitely going to have to put a project together. You're a fun guy to work with and always entertaining to hang with. You know, something right now, I am loving my job. I love the people I work with. Some of my best friends are the leaders within this company, my relationship managers. I love them to death. I have their back. They have mine. So at this point, you know, I'm not looking, I'm not hunting. Love what I'm doing. We have some amazing technologies, like I said, coming out. We're boutique in size to where, and this is what I really love about where I'm at now too. When you work for a gigantic First Data or a TSYS and you call up the food chain and say, hey, we really should do this. Sometimes they'll say, get in line. And it could take months and months and months, even years to get anything done. We're small enough and maneuverable enough to where we're not like a big barge in the ocean or more like a speedboat. And with a large group of developers on staff, we can make quick, fast turns, create some integrations, and really do some great things for some people. So I love the maneuverability. I love the integrity, the friendships I've built within Choice. It's like I said, it's been a breath of fresh air for me.
Where do you see the industry in 5 years?
Great question. I love that things continue to evolutionize and revolutionize themselves in this industry every 5 to 10 years. I would say we're going to continue to see an increase in P2P, person-to-person payments. You know, the Zells of the world, the Venmos, the PayPals. I think that's going to continue to go and grow, and we're going to be making payments through our devices. I see a continued consolidation of the super ISOs buying the smaller guys. I see technology continuing to become better and better. You know, and I really think that as much as transaction fees and interchange is all important to us, I think data is becoming very, very important. So
there we go.
With all these smaller tablet-based ways of processing, I mean, you can run a business on your phone now. Who would have thought that 20, 25 years ago? So I think data, you know, nowadays you shop at a store, they know what kind of wine you like. They know you like beef. They know if you like chicken. They know what, you know, they know everything about you. They know you like Italian food because you go to an Italian restaurant. So I think data is going to continue to be collected, and that might become more of a valuable piece of the processing network than, you know, pennies, nickels, and dimes on the transaction side. I mean, I really believe that cash discount is where you need to be. If you're not selling cash discount, I think you're missing a very big boat. It's still cutting edge. It's still relatively new. And I think within the next 2 to 5 years, it's going to be on every street corner. Everybody, all of us as consumers, are going to be paying a 3 to 4% fee, and the merchants are going to have it. So if you're not doing that now, you're going to miss the boat, and you're going to miss a ton of commissions that you could be building up.
Don't you think that cash discount will soon be the same thing, the race to zero on cash discount?
I hope not. I hope not. You know what I can see, because right now, you know, one of the taglines I give my agents is go out there and tell a merchant, hey, or I tell them, hey, when someone comes in behind you and says they can beat your rate, well, how did they beat zero, right? In the past, if you wrote a merchant at 30, 40, 50 basis points, someone could come in, pull down their pants, and give it to you for 10 or 20 basis points, and everybody loses. That agent's not making enough to feed his kids, and we lost a skinny deal. With cash discount, you take a merchant to basically zero monthly fees, you're making great profit. So if when you say a race to zero, I could see somebody coming in and saying, Mr. and Mrs. Merchant, I'll pay you $1,000 to come sign up with me for cash discount. And then, you know, as an agent, as an acquirer, we lose money for the first 3, 4 months, 5 months, whatever it might be, till we pay off that forward bonus for being a merchant.
You don't think agents will be walking in and be like, hey, you're charging your customers 3.95%. You know, your effective rate should be around 1.9. I could put you at 2.5. You're not charging your customers at all. You're still getting rid of the bill.
It could happen, and it might happen. But the merchants, you know, the way I look at it, I don't think the merchants that will be such a pain point as it is in the past 5 years, because you're truly showing them the savings. Hey, if I take you from 50, 70 basis points down to 20, I'm going to save you $400 a month. That's big for a merchant. But if they're already paying nothing,
yeah,
and they'll still be paying nothing, and an agent comes in and says I could shave it from 3.5 to 2.5, the merchant's not going to feel any more pain. Is a consumer not going to pay because you're paying 12, 15 cents more a transaction? I don't know. I hope it's not, John. It's a valid question, and it could absolutely happen. I hope it doesn't.
I also think that, tell me what your thoughts are on this as well. You know, the industry, especially with some of the new reps coming in, some of the younger generations that have, grown up with technology and know how technology works, that's going to drive a different type of sales force into the industry, where it's going to be easier to transition into solution-based selling, not just selling on price. You know, if you put somebody on cash discount and you also have them in an omni-channel point of sale system and, rewards programs, even debit and credit card based rewards programs where they can track their data that away, SMS marketing, social media marketing, smart inventory tracking, the whole nine. That solution based selling pretty well nips any of that in the butt. When I have a rep that tells me, that they're going to lose a merchant over price, or they're, haggling with a merchant over 10 or 15 basis points or whatever it may be, the last thing that I address is what the price is. I'm like, what solutions are you providing them? What problems are you solving for them with price? Because if you give them that 10 or 15 basis points or that 3 or 4 cents per transaction, the next guy that comes in and is down even further, you've already lost that deal. So you're in there for 2.5 hours, 3 hours trying to sell this deal and bickering back and forth, when the real problem is you just haven't found the solution for the problems that he's really having. If he's trying to save that much money and things are that tight, let's look at other avenues. Let's see how to generate more revenue. Let's see how we can increase customer frequency, how we can increase average ticket, how we can, reduce overhead in other avenues. But, moving towards solutions, I think, needs to be the main focus for the next, 3 to 5 years if you're gonna remain in the merchant service space.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly. Look at the bank. Look at the financial systems. Banks have roughly 70 different financial pieces, right? If they only have a bank checking account or savings account, good chance they'll lose that customer to another bank who offers them more. So the idea in the banking world is if we have 5, 6, 7 sticky products, it's going to be very hard to uproot that consumer and move them to another bank. So as you brought out, Austin, the more tools, the loyalty, all that data, you give them a POS, all their inventory is now in the back of that. It makes it much, much more important for them to stick around and stay with you.
Now I'm going to touch on that a little deeper. We bring up point of sale systems. It seems like every day I'm on LinkedIn or I'm in Facebook groups or whatever, and there's a new point of sale system that's out, and they're using, a PAX device, or they're using, an iPad or an Android tablet or whatever the case may be. And I think guys that have been around for a while know what to look for when they're trying to select a point of sale system. But what do you got to say to the guys that, are new, that they're new to this? Maybe they're just using their ISO's point of sale system that can be extremely weak, or, maybe they're using Clover, which I absolutely love Clover, so I'm not saying anything bad about it. What are some things that you could tell them to look for when they're selecting a point of sale? I see you got some right there behind you.
John, tell me how you really feel.
You want to see one? Just throw them on the floor. They're big.
John says, "Let's go skeet shooting."
Oh my God.
Seriously.
Something I love the way that technology is headed. I mean, if you go back 15, 20 years, for a restaurant to get into POS environment, they were spending $20, $30, $50,000 for these big Aloha and Micros installations. And nowadays, a merchant can get into a device for $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 that will have a ton of options for them. So I really like where we're headed. But to your point, Austin, for every POS system, tablet-based product that pops up, 10 will come to the floor, and 1 might still be standing in 15 months from now. So I think merchants might be a little nervous about that, and new agents, I would say, might be a little nervous about that. To me, anytime I see a new POS on the floor, I might say, hey, that looks like some very amazing technology. Let's see where they're at in 6 months. And if they're still here in 6 months, I might say, well, let's give it another 6 months. So I want to make sure they get some roots, some deep roots in the ground, that their technology is around to stay, that they have financial backing. That's the thing. A lot of POS systems come up, they get 10, 20 million in backing, and they go out there and try to push. They don't get enough sales. They fold up shop and they leave.
Now, my question to you about
stuck with a brick.
Yeah.
For you being a bigger ISO, are you guys worried about your agents using other POSs? Because a lot of these guys, they'll use the agents to go out and sell their POS until they start getting their own traction, and then start their own payments, like Toast payments and.
Right. I don't know if I'd use the word worried. You know, there's a lot of POS systems out there that are certified on the TSYS platform, and that's our main platform. So we can work with a lot of those. You know, one thing I'm disappointed in, you know, you see a lot of POS systems, you see a lot of softwares out there, and then they'll go handcuff themselves to, let's just say, a WorldPay or First Data.
Yep.
And then they have full control of the pricing for the merchants from that point forward. And they'll say, nope, you know, because I've had many merchants come to me and say, Andy, you know, I'm looking at this POS device. Can you work with it? So I go and I call the company and I say, hey, you know, I have a merchant that wants to process through us. They love your product. You know, how can we work with you? Oh, sorry, we can only work with company A or company B.
Yep.
And that's the part I don't like and I kind of hate, because they're kind of selling out in a sense. And, you know, they're getting their hands patted in the background from these big ISOs, but
well, it's bad business too. It's bad business too. And I don't mean to cut you off and interrupt you, but you know, that's when you look at the landscape, this is no different than, you know, that'd be like a tire shop saying, I'm only buying tires from this distributor, or,
yep.
you know, we're only going to use AT&T phone service here at our store. Or we're going to do X, Y, and Z. You know, they might offer them this sweet kickback, which I've seen some very large successful point of sale systems have some sweet kickbacks that weren't that great. And yeah, man, that's so unfortunate, because there's a lot of fantastic products out there that unfortunately at one point in time got their hands tied behind their back and there's nothing they can do about it. You know, the Day Smart suite is I've talked to them numerous times about it, and I've actually sold their product and sold credit card processing on the side of it because I love the Day Smart suite.
Right.
You know, they've got great solutions for salons, dog groomers, so on and so forth. But, you know, there's a big dog that went to them and said, hey, you know, we want to handle your processing. And they've got that name, they've got that brand, and they don't incentivize their agents to sell it. You know, right. 99% of their agents don't even know it's available to them. You know, so they got sold on this dream that, you know, they'd have this whole huge sales force to sell it. And the sales force don't even know about it. And they're still stuck, you know, being being tied to a processor and having to do all their own sales from in-house. There's definitely some point of sale developers that'll be watching this that are in our groups that, you know, that's just one of the worst things I think that anybody can do is tie themselves to one vendor that away. And it's unfortunate to see.
And I would think that, you know, let's just say I was developing it and releasing something, I would much rather be agnostic and not get my palms patted in the background, because I would probably sell 3, 4, 5 times the amount of devices, and you get your monthly licensing fees, charge for the loyalty piece. So you have the add-ons that you give the merchants, but now you got, you know, 20 to 50 different ISOs and shops that can sell your product.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're going to keep that business because you're doing good business. You know, right now, if a merchant signs up for one of those POS systems, now they're handcuffed, and who's to say they're not going to get their rates raised 3 times a year? Then they're not happy, but they're stuck. So they're paying higher rates. They don't want to get out of this POS system.
Yep.
They've handcuffed themselves to. I just don't like that model.
No, and I can't tell you how many times that I've walked into some of these businesses that are with a point of sale system where they have to use their processor. I stick a standalone terminal next to it. They use it because they can't stand their processing. The customer service is horrible. Their rates were ridiculous. 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year later, I go back in and say, you know, we've saved X amount of dollars. We could have already, you know, X-nayed this issue that you're having this point of sale. Here's another product. You know, let's transition point of sales. And then, you know, not only did that point of sale provider lose, you know, the processing, they lost the business overall as well. So, I mean, I don't understand the thought process of tying yourself to one ISO like that as an ISV. So, yeah,
you make a quick buck, but long term, nobody ends up happy other than, you know, that processing platform, because they kind of have everybody locked up at that point.
Yeah, if you chase that quick money, man, you're always going to be done in a shorter amount of time. That's why I always tell reps. I see reps chasing these big upfront bonuses and free terminals, but their residuals and Schedule A, you know, are garbage. And you know, I don't think there's also enough education in the industry to new reps. I say new reps. I think that if you're in the business, you know, 3 years or less, you're still I think you're still pretty fresh. I don't think you've built a substantial book of business. I don't think you sold a couple of portfolios, anything like that. But, you know, that's there needs to be more education pushed their way about their residuals and how to protect them. Now, I'm going to transition that over to this real quick. I also think that that's why there's been a huge rise in W-2 sales agents in the business. And the W-2 sales agents, I also believe, is what's going to be the demise of independent sales reps. And the only way that happens is if we keep allowing that to happen. So, you know, that's part of the reason for this podcast is educating the sales reps. I kind of want to get your thought on the W-2 agent thing.
Yeah. So what's interesting is I've worked very deeply on both sides of that equation. And typically the W-2s, you know, they need the salary. They got to keep insurance, make their house payment, make their rent payment, buy kids for the shoes. But in about 3 years from now, it's very hard for them to keep making the same money they made last year because these big banks, these big processors that are W-2 and these employees put an end on those residuals. So I've seen people make less money in year 3 than they did in year 2. They made less money in year 4 than they did in year 3 in those W-2 environments. So, you know, and I have people call me, you know, quite often that are currently in that position thinking, Andy, I'm thinking about rotating over. And generally what I tell them, I say, hey, you know, I don't know what your overhead looks like. I don't know what your bank account looks like. But what you have to do is if you jump into this world and you do it cold turkey, have 6 to 9 months worth of overhead in your bank account because you don't want to start losing sleep, throwing the towel. I said, it's going to take you 6 to 8 months to get to a break-even point. And then a year and a half, 2 years from now, you're going to think, man, why didn't I do that sooner? Exactly. So that's what I always tell them. Or I say, hey, keep your day job, and in the evenings and weekends, go out and start popping a couple deals here and there. Get your wife involved, get your kids involved, teenagers, whatever. Go build up a small portfolio with an ISO. Get yourself 30 to 50 mids, and then you got some lunch money on the table. You have your house payment covered. Then you make the transition, and it's a lot less financially painful.
I started out in this industry as a W-2, and you know, about 4 months in, I recognized this is not going to work out in my favor over time. So I did what anybody that's in a W-2 sales rep position now I think should do is learn everything that they can and get out of there as soon as possible and become an independent sales rep. Build your book of business so that it's yours. You know, fight for an aggressive Schedule A, fight for aggressive split, and go out and work your ass off and build your book of business.
Yep, that's exactly it. And, you know, if you asked a W-2 employee after year 5 in the industry and you asked a 1099 after 5 years, who's the happiest?
Totally different people.
Absolutely. You know who's going to be happy.
You know what I don't understand is how all these people are W-2ing him but not paying him a salary. Like the Heartlands, the Beyonds, the Spot-Ons, all those guys W-2 all their reps, but they don't pay him a salary. And then they give them big bonuses because they do their true-up bonus. But on month 12, all these people are they get 3 or 4 statements. They give the biggest statement. So at month 12, they got to give some of that bonus back, and it just totally fucks them.
And if they quit,
you lose everything.
Where's their bucket? Where's their bucket of money? Yeah. But this industry as an ISO 1099, like I said, it's the gift that keeps on giving. And you could build I have guys who are W-2 now in a complete different industry, and they said, Andy, man, I'd really like to retire in 3 years, but I don't think I can do it. And so I was telling them, hey, man, why don't you tiptoe into this industry? You go close 1 or 2 deals a month, and you do that for the next 3 years. Guess what? You'll have $3 to $5 grand sitting on your porch every month. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Just treat your merchants right. Treat them with integrity. Always follow up, and make sure the company you're working with has that same set of integrity, and you'll be able to retire right when you want to.
Man, I appreciate the input and the thoughts for today. John, do you got any questions for him?